The National Weather Service in Raleigh, it's Nick Petro with your Tropical Storm Debby briefing update here this Tuesday, 5:30, August the 6th. This is for central North Carolina, the area here that National Weather Service Raleigh, North Carolina serves. So let's take a quick look at the current conditions. And you could see I've got radar looping here. It's a slow loop, but it's a loop nonetheless. And you could see, let me show my pointer here, and you can see band after band after band rotating in. That's what tropical cyclones do. So we could see heaviest rain is over eastern North Carolina, with some heavier rain rotating up into southeast North Carolina. And then of course a band that's closer to the center there, rotating across central in east central South Carolina and eastern Georgia. Look at these wind gusts. What I'm showing here is the highest wind gust since midnight, and you could see mid to upper 40s here off the coast and along portions of the South Carolina coast. You could see a couple 40s here along the Outer Banks and down east North Carolina, with a bunch of mid 30s. So, as you could see, this is obviously tropical storm strength here with gusts, but so far it hasn't been too bad across central North Carolina. Some wind gusts in the upper teens to lower 20s. So that's not too bad. And that'll generally be the character of the wind as we go through the rest of the duration. So this isn't a wind event we're concerned about. This is a rain and flooding event that we're concerned about. So let's get back to the slides, and I'll take you through some stuff here. Again, this is the 5 p.m. update from the National Hurricane Center. Tropical Storm Debby, max sustained winds 40 miles per hour, just right along the coast there, near Savannah, Georgia, there in that general area. So, and you can see the track hasn't really changed a whole lot. It's just going to slowly make its way northward, basically coming back ashore, somewhere between Charleston and Myrtle Beach there on, looks like on Thursday, before it finally crosses central North Carolina Thursday night into Friday, and then finally gets out of here during the early weekend. All right, so here's a couple overview points here. It's going to be a prolonged heavy rain event that will give us flash flooding and subsequent river flooding. We've already seen rain bands begin to spread across the area. And if you're curious how much rain we've gotten so far, let me just go right back here real quick. Not to make this go on any longer, but let's just go to precipitation, and we'll put in here, I don't know, 12-hour amounts, and you could see what we've had during the last 12 hours. We're talking less than 1/4 of an inch from the triangle westward, with some 3/4 to around an inch amounts east of I-95. So so far what is falling in those heavier bands has been fairly efficient. With like I said, 3/4 to almost an inch of rain in a lot of places here across the southeast part of the state. The heavier rain is obviously down, in those heavier downpour bands there across coastal sections of South Carolina. And again, that heavier rain will be moving north. So that's so far. All right, what about the storm total rainfall amounts? We're talking 5 to 8 inches across the Triad region, 6 to 9 across the Triangle region, and 10 to 15 inches generally across the Fayetteville region. Outside of those specific regions, we could just kind of broad brush it and say general 4 to 8 inches of rain across the rest of central North Carolina, save for those locations that I specifically mentioned. So real quick, just going back to our title slide, what has changed? And we made some tweaks to rainfall. We slightly lowered the rainfall for the Triangle region, and we slightly increased rainfall for the Triad region. So anyway, probably not a big deal in terms of the overall threats, which is flooding, but just wanted to point out, if you joined us at 11:30, that's been the main changes here. Again, another way to convey the what and the when and the where. So we're concerned about some wind gusts 25, maybe 40 miles per hour gusts Thursday through Friday as that center of the storm kind of makes its way northward through North Carolina. But again, the big concern is flash flooding and eventual river flooding across all of central North Carolina. And then, of course, a few isolated tornadoes, primarily along and east of I-95 through early Friday. So again, yet another way to convey what our biggest concerns are. And again, not to sound like a broken record, but flooding both rain, flash flooding, and then subsequent river flooding. Wind and tornadoes, obviously an elevated threat there. Okay, so how much rain? Here again is a is a graphical depiction of what I alluded to earlier just a moment ago verbally, and you could see now. Look at in the Greensboro area, 6 to 8 inches swath there. That's a tad higher than what we showed at 11:30, but that's about the same amount as what we're showing for Raleigh, which is a tad lower than what we showed earlier. Okay, so we still think the heaviest rain is going to fall southeast of Raleigh, where we're going to have 10 inches or more of rain, particularly for the Fayetteville region, Goldsboro, Clinton, those particular areas, Laurinburg. So the southern coastal plain and the Sandhills are what we think are set to get the heaviest rain amounts. But let me tell you, 6 to 8 inches, across the triangle and the triad, that's nothing to fool around with. That's going to give some flash flooding. So we all have got some hazards and impacts to deal with in the coming days. That's rainfall. When we kind of convey this in what areas we think will have the greatest risk for flash flooding, that's what you got in these maps here. We call this the excessive rainfall outlook. But basically what it does is it kind of tries to grab your attention and show you which areas have the greatest risk for flash flooding. So the image in the lower left is is for tomorrow, and lower right is for Thursday. So the areas in red and purple are the areas that we think will have the most frequent occurrences and most likely occurrences of flash flooding, okay, where the water comes up quick, it does its damage, and it goes away fairly quick as well. Okay, so again, it looks like the worst of the flash flooding will be on Thursday, but again, tomorrow as those rain bands start to increase, we'll have to be concerned about that as well tomorrow. All right, let's jump right to river flooding, because these are fairly fresh graphics. And by the way, we sent out a briefing by email probably about maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, that was strictly a river flood briefing. So if you haven't seen that yet and you're on our email list, check that out. You can also get it on weather.gov/Raleigh in the briefing tab. Or briefing icon, if you will. But let's just take you real quick through a couple of the rivers here. Deep River on the left, Haw River on the right, and you can see at least some minor flooding is expected near Moncure. We're keeping an eye on the Haw River near Bynum. Not quite forecast to get there yet, but we're getting close. Cape Fear is looking quite concerning here, or at least at the little river there that feeds into the Cape Fear region. We do have Lillington showing minor flood, and the Cape Fear at Fayetteville getting close to moderate at 47.1 feet there. But look at the Little River at Manchester. We've got that going to 27.3 feet, which is just above major flood stage. So again, keep that in mind, and obviously there's any tweak in the rain will a rainfall forecast will obviously have impacts on these forecasts. What about a couple of miscellaneous rivers, not necessarily in any one particular region, but the Rocky River near Norwood, we are expecting that to rise very quickly when the heavy rain comes on Thursday, getting into major flood stage for a short period of time on Thursday, and then falling off pretty quickly by Friday. But the record is 46.4 feet at Norwood. We have it getting up to 39.7, so still about 5 feet below the record. Over in the northeast part of northeast of the triangle, we have the Tar River. It takes a little longer to react. It's going to get close to flood stage over the weekend. We'll keep our eyes on that. Now, one area that we're particularly concerned about is in Sampson County, the Black River near Tomahawk. We have that going to major flood stage, about 4 feet below its record. And the one thing is a lot of low-lying areas around there that when that water comes out of the banks, it spreads out and it impacts a lot of land and a lot of areas and probably quite a few homes. So anyway, that water is going to stick around for a while too, because it's such a low-lying. It takes it's like it takes a long time to get back into the system. A lot of it just simply has to evaporate. So that could be an issue there. Again, assuming we get 10 to 15 inches of rain. So let's hope that forecast is overdone, okay? Because that's a pretty nasty situation there in Sampson County if that comes to pass. Okay, moving to the Neuse River, of course, we are expecting the Neuse system to flood with these rainfall amounts that we have forecast again. Smithfield's going to get into moderate, as is Goldsboro. So we have Clayton there getting close to moderate, but definitely well up in the minor flood stage. So again, any kind of little changes in the rainfall forecast and what ultimately happens can have substantial impacts. But this is what we think thus far. All right, so that's a quick look at wind. If you want to look at more detail, again, check out your inbox or check out weather.gov/Raleigh and click that briefing tab for the latest river. It's a river specific briefing. Okay, some folks are asking about winds, how high the wind's going to get, and we're saying thinking that the strongest wind gust. Now, this is the highest wind gust throughout the duration of the event. We're thinking down towards areas south and east of Fayetteville will have the highest winds. With basically a general 20 to 30 mile per hour wind gust is what's expected. Probably these winds will really get going late Thursday and into Friday as the storm center is lifting through North Carolina. Now, 28, 25 miles per hour, not a big deal, right? But when you put that on a tree that is sitting in very soaked ground, a gust of 30 will probably knock over a couple trees. So again, I want to just reinforce the idea that there's going to be a lot of power outages. Okay, even though this isn't a big wind event, okay, because of the wet ground, you may not even need a wind gust for a tree to fall when the ground is so soaked up with water. So keep that in mind. Don't be surprised if you see a bunch of power outages. All right. As all tropical cyclones do, they bring tornadoes in their outer rain bands. Brief, quick little spin-up tornadoes. Not these long track, powerful ones, but these ones they develop quickly. They're hard to issue long lead warnings because they develop so quickly and they only last a short time. So again, don't be surprised if you hear a lot of tornado warnings coming out. Just know that these little spinners in these outer bands. There's usually a lot of them, so we try to get ahead of them when we can. So again, don't be surprised to see little pockets of enhanced wind damage due to these little spin up tornadoes. So the area in dark green is the areas that we think have the greatest chance to see that. On the left is Wednesday, on the right is Thursday. So that's why we generally said, basically along and east of I-95 is the areas with the best chance to see these tornadoes. All right, so putting it all in a time frame, threat levels based on the time, and you could see the rain is probably going to get going tomorrow, but it's really going to come down hard from late tomorrow to like tomorrow night, all day Thursday, and into the early morning Friday before things finally wind down late Friday night. Where we do have those gusts of 25, 28, 30 miles per hour, that's mostly going to be Thursday and Friday. And then it takes a little while for the river flooding for all that water to get routed into the river. So we're talking, maybe starting Thursday, but really peaking and cresting for most places Friday into the weekend. And then finally, our tornado threat will be pretty much any time tomorrow through early Friday. And again, those are very widely scattered where they do happen at all. And again, those are hard to issue warnings on because they happen so quick, they develop so quick, and they go away so quick. So anyway, just be ready. If you see gusty winds picking up kind of out of nowhere, or if you get a warning from us for tornadoes, you got to take action immediately, because if like I said, these generally don't have a whole lot of lead time on them just because of the challenges associated with them. So be ready to take action to seek shelter the moment you get that tornado warning. So be ready, okay? And again, don't be surprised if there's more power outages than you might think there would be with this type of situation. Again, the wet grounds are going to make for a very easy situation for trees to fall, okay? So that's the timing. All right, just to kind of button it all up, again, prolonged heavy rain threats the biggest concern. Storm total rainfall amounts generally across North Carolina, we're talking 4 to 8 inches, but the triad will see probably 5 to 8, the triangle 6 to 9, in the Fayetteville region, south and east of Fayetteville 10 to 15. So that's the way we think it's going to play out. The winds, as I mentioned, if you get a 25, maybe 30 mile per hour gust, again, that could knock some trees down. given the wet ground. So don't be surprised if there's some power outages. And again, the moment you get those tornado warnings, don't take time to go look for it, and seek shelter immediately. Okay, so that's the main concern, mainly along and east of I-95, but really that could happen anywhere across central North Carolina. So a couple things I want to make a note of. I'll be pushing these slides out, the ones we just used here, through email here shortly. They'll also get uploaded to weather.gov/Raleigh, so you can find them there as well. What else? I did mention that let me show you real quick, since here is the briefing we put out at 4:30 just for rivers. Okay, so if you slide through these, again, they should be in your inbox for people on our email list and online at weather.gov/Raleigh for those who aren't on our email list. And you could see where we pretty much show every river and the impacts. So you could see, okay, what does a crest of 9.9 feet do? Well, we list it right here. At 9 feet, minor flooding begins, and you could read the impacts. And we do this for every river that has a forecast point. Okay, so be sure to check that out. And again, it's in your inbox or weather.gov/Raleigh. We're going to upload and put these on our top news of the day, so you won't have to look hard to find them. They'll be right at the top here. Okay. All right, so that is our briefing here, 5:30 this Tuesday afternoon on the 6th of August, 2024, and thank you for joining us.